Let's get the hell out of here now! Move! I don't think she's enjoying the ride. Come on, man. Enough! How'd you like it, sweet lady? Faster, faster still. Fucking A, man! Fuck you! Bye-bye.
Hey everybody, welcome to MovieStrange. I got my buddies here, Al and Drew, Uncle Al and Drew.
Yep.
Hey guys.
Hello.
Everybody knows I'm cult curious. These guys are cult movie experts. Cult movie experts. Before we get on to the 2x4 from last week, Uncle Al has a few things to say about some cult people who maybe passed away this week. Al, take it away.
Yes, Ralph. I just wanted to, talk about a few people that passed away this week in the cult community. I think it's important to recognize these people. The first one I'd like to talk about, we reviewed the movie Psychos in Love on one of our earlier episodes, and Joe, played by Carmine Capobianco, passed away this week.
Joe the lead?
Yes, Joe the lead. He was 62.
He was not old. That's not old.
Oh, all these people are checking out at the right time, I guess. He was great in this movie, and it's kind of a bummer, I would say.
Yeah, that's sad, actually.
The next person that I'd like to talk about is Tanya Roberts passed away. She was in Beastmaster,
among other things.
Yeah, she was also in Tourist Trap, and she played Midge Pinciotti on that '70s show, which. That's probably the first place that I saw her, because that was when I was a teenager. And
wasn't she she was a Bond girl too, wasn't she? Was she a Bond girl?
Yeah, I think it's
I think she was in A View to a Kill.
Okay.
Yeah. And she was in Sheena, Queen of the Jungle, which was where I first encountered her, I think.
Is that what you call it?
Yeah, I encountered her a lot, actually. And she had the distinct experience of dying this week and then coming back and then actually dying.
I know.
And I always feel really awful for the family of people when news comes out that's just not correct, or it's clearly not correct yet. That's very frustrating. So she's only 65.
65. Jesus, that's young.
And
I can say that because I'm almost 60, but okay.
Yeah.
With the whole dying twice thing, another person passed away this week, Julie Strain. I think it was yesterday or the day before. She was in a bunch of Andy Sedaris films.
What's that film you're holding up there?
It's what is this called? Girls, Guns, and G-Strings. It's the Andy
What's that
Sedaris.
about, Al?
No, why aren't these words coming up? I don't understand. Why am I missing these? I don't get it.
It's the Andy Sedaris 12-film collection. She was in Fit to Kill and some other films.
Who's Andy Sedaris?
You really don't know who Andy Sedaris is?
I actually don't. I don't think I do.
If you love naked Playboy Playmates and Penthouse Pets and sleazy action films, then these are the movies.
I told you I'm cult curious. I don't. So thank you. I got to write Andy Sedaris. I got it. Okay.
Yeah. And she was, she was on the cover she was the character in Heavy Metal 2000, the sequel to the cartoon Heavy Metal from the 70s.
Okay.
So that's kind of where I knew her from.
All right.
And and one more person that I just want to.
But wait, there's more.
Out.
There's more.
Yeah. Wow. This is a non-cult person. Michael Apted died.
Oh,
yeah.
He was a British director, and he did a lot of movies like Coal Miner's Daughter, and he directed a Bond film. But the one thing that I really know him for is the Up series, which is the documentary series where he started with kids at the age of 7 and filmed them every year. Every 7 years after that.
Right. Yeah.
And that is, to me, that's like one of the best documentaries ever made. Like I watched like 5 of them in a row, and it's just so surreal and strange to see people grow like that and like condensed. It's really good. I highly recommend it if you can.
I knew the name. He directed also one of my favorite Val Kilmer films called Thunderheart. You guys seen Thunderheart?
Sure, on the reservation.
On the reservation. This guy, I mean, he's got a lot. I mean, look, I just want to quickly because since you brought him up, he's done a lot of like films that I really like. He did some Ray Donovan in there too. Wow, yeah.
He worked steadily for.
Anyway, I thought,
50 years.
yeah, Thunderheart I thought was just an amazing film. So, rest in power, people. Rest in power, as we say. All right. So last week's 2x4. Here were the 2 words. The 4 words. I'm sorry. 2 sets of 4 words. 2x4. I should know better. Ceremony, Angel, Wales, Isolation. Winning, Misogyny, Female Director. And we all know I picked Winning, Misogyny, Female Director, which happens to be a Drew joint.
That's right.
That's 2 in a row, I think, for Drew. 1 more, and Al goes in the, we picked this up pile.
Yeah.
What's the film? What's the film I picked?
The film is called The Boys Next Door, starring Maxwell Caulfield and Charlie Sheen, and it's directed by Penelope Spheris, who's got a very broad career of titles, including The Decline of Western Civilization, documentaries about music, and Wayne's World. And this movie is a lot closer to the punk rock documentaries than the Wayne's World.
It's funny you say that. Okay, go ahead.
It's a very dark movie. In some ways, it's a very 80s movie because it has Charlie Sheen in it, and it's about high school kids. But it's a lot darker than that. It's closer to movies like Charlie's father Martin made, like Badlands,
right,
than it is to Ferris Bueller or something.
Well, I'm going to play the trailer, okay?
Please.
And of course, Maxwell Caulfield was just coming off of Grease 2, right?
Yep.
So I think he was pretty angry about that, and I think he used that in this film. But as you're watching this trailer, I want you to just imagine putting the Wayne's World trailer on top of the audio that you're hearing. Just do that as you're watching this thing, and let me know what you think, because I got to tell you, it's awesome.
Nearly all these murderers are white males, many of them handsome, charismatic, intelligent.
This is the story of a couple of all-American kids, Roy Alston and Bo Richards. They're young, they're clean-cut, and like most kids, they want to do something spectacular.
So what do you want us to do, huh, Roy? Become computer programmers, maybe fly the space shuttle?
He seemed like a regular kind of guy, normal, kind of quiet. He just didn't seem like the kind of guy that would kill anyone.
But Roy and Bo are different.
Sorry.
They're trapped.
Walk in there Monday. We're on the drill press the rest of our lives.
And they don't fit in.
Look who's here.
What happens when there's no way out?
Should have killed him.
Almost did.
Almost doesn't count.
These people confuse sex and aggression. They can't differentiate between the two.
At 11:30 p.m. in Los Angeles, Roy and Bo met Angie Baker.
Come back to my apartment.
She was 29.
Give her 2 seconds of pay. Girls like that one are giving us 18 years of pay.
Lisa Fisher and Rich Wilder were both 19.
This is my game, sucker.
Like if I had a 38 right now, I could make you do just about anything I wanted to.
It's in the look. It's in the touch. It's in the eyes. It's the latest style in madness.
Everybody's got a gun these days. They're more popular than sex.
What are you doing, you crazy
Get
son?
out.
Day by day, they're changing the face of America.
A lot of people out there.
And they're barely old enough to vote.
It's you and me up here.
That same scene's in Wayne's World.
The Boys Next
I swear to God.
Starring Maxwell Caulfield and Charlie Sheen. From acclaimed filmmaker Penelope Spheris, a motion picture and a warning. The Boys Next Door. Rated R.
Okay. Go ahead. I mean, explain a little bit, then I'll give you my thoughts.
Sure. Okay, so this movie, basically, it does this interesting thing where it introduces you to a couple of high school kids. That's Roy and Bo. And Roy and Bo are I guess, really they just graduated high school, and they have no prospects at all.
Well, yes, they do. Their prospect is they're going to work in the factory on Monday. Oh,
they're looking to a very predictable future of working in a drill press in an industrial factory, and They can already see into their future when they're what their work is gonna be, what their drunken nights are gonna be, there's no joy, there's no anything ahead of them, and so that's not an uncommon thing for people to be out of high school and not be really excited about what's next. So they say, we're going to go to LA, the nearby big city, and we're going to have a good night. And before they do that, you've already figured out a lot of things about these kids. It's very weird for me to watch this movie because you don't realize what it's doing until you're already into it. You're actually quite sympathetic to them in a lot of ways at the beginning because they're not necessarily... It's not simple that they're bad. I mean, Roy is very angry. Bo is very dumb.
Hold on. What do we got? Wait, we got to say we got this.
Oh yeah, spoilers.
Spoilers. Sorry, everybody.
That's true. It's spoilers, but it's just the setup of the movie.
I know.
And
1980.
And yeah, since 1985. So hopefully people can get around to it. But you can see that they're outcasts in high school. They're pulling pranks that nobody appreciates. They're crashing parties where nobody wants them. They're not. There's nothing that they look at themselves and feel happy or cool about or anything. So you look at them and you're like, I don't want to spend time with these kids, but I do kind of feel bad for them. You see how, I think it's Roy's father just completely ignores him coming home drunk. Like they're coming from a tough place and they're not going anywhere special. And then they get to LA and really ugly things start happening. So that really tests your sympathy towards them. Which is really
they're doing all the ugly things.
Oh yeah, no, they don't. They are not walking into traps. They are encountering people and hurting them and killing them, and it's really quite violent.
Go ahead, Al.
I guess I didn't feel sympathetic towards them. I don't know if it was like a result of like a suspension of disbelief thing, but like seeing Charlie Sheen and Maxwell Caulfield act in this role, like if these were like maybe less attractive kids who were like really social outcasts, but
I see what you're saying.
I kind of had a hard time believing that they were actual social outcasts.
Well, who had sympathy? Was Drew saying it? Drew, were you saying you had sympathy?
I feel bad for these kids from where you see. I mean, the movie shows you their home life, their social life. It shows you that there's not much going for them, and that's sad. That doesn't excuse their later behavior. But it pushes it really. I get the desperation that drives them to seek anything. Like this could have been a story about two kids who leave high school and are unhappy with their lives and end up as addicts. Instead, they end up as spree murderers because there's nothing and they're looking for something.
I think it would have been more successful if they spent more time showing like why we should be sympathetic for him, like really seeing like Maxwell Caulfield's dad. Like, I mean, you see him ignore him basically, but get more of that. Because like when I think of like sympathetic characters, like for example, Natural Born Killers, like I find Mallory to be sympathetic because I've seen how terrible Rodney Dangerfield is and how her mother stands by while he molests her. And so like in that film, like I actually feel sympathy for them. Whereas this one, it's very cold and like, I see a lot of it as like partly a fault of their own too.
Well, they start the film. They start the film immediately with those two pulling that chalk prank that they do right at the high school, right?
Right.
So immediately we've determined that these two guys are kind of dickheads. They are dickheads. Mm-hmm. And they might be slightly incel, what we call incels now, right? Guys who never, for some reason, can't get dates, and they're pissed off because other guys are getting dates and they're not. And, we're walking in, we drop right in, and they're already assholes to start. So, I mean...
Well, I guess the question then is, because everything that you guys are saying makes sense, maybe I'm not supposed to feel sympathy for them.
I don't think you are.
Maybe I'm reading more because
but before we do that,
my sympathy to them does not involve any level of excusing their behavior or that they don't have responsibility for it. But I feel like the movie's showing you how people are shaped.
Let's back up a step. We saw. Well, wait. We saw a little bit in the trailer. Okay, the movie starts with what? The movie starts with a slideshow on 4 or 5 serial killers.
Right.
Son of Sam, the California Strangler, the guy from Atlanta. There's like and Henry Lucas. They end with Henry Lucas. So immediately we know this is a film about serial killers, or people potentially they're going to be, and they do this whole montage, which I thought was fantastic, by the way, because I love crime dramas, and I'm like, see, this is, and they do all this, and it ends with Henry Lucas, and then we see these two guys writing the chalk. It looks like Charlie Sheen's dead, but his friend, they're just playing a prank. So we already know that the film is setting up that these two guys are going to be serial killers. That's what they set up from the get.
Which is not, and that's not subtle, and that's fine.
This film is not subtle. The film is not subtle.
Serial killers are at some point humans that went a different way.
Right.
And I'm not sitting here. I wouldn't be one of those people that would look up Eileen Wuornos and let's get engaged type of people. I'm not saying that, but I can't forget that they are people, and I think that's kind of a tribute to the movie, that it feels real enough to me. Like the violence is very real. Their anger is very real. The tension between the characters, that only one of them knows what's going on, because Roy is clearly sexually attracted to Beau. And Beau's like, I like girls, and doesn't notice anything. And
whoa, back up. Wait. Whoa.
You don't think so?
So, now that you bring that up, that thought never occurred to me that he was attracted to his buddy there.
Well, I think that's why Maxwell Caulfield's Roy is so incredibly violent to the
I
gay
see that
guy.
now that you, wow, holy crap, I can't believe that.
Well, I think you can go both ways with this movie. I think it can be they're platonic, and Roy is just messed up from the abuse and being ignored at home, and he's just angry because he can't get girls, and then he's jealous of Beau because Beau actually does have sex later on in the film. But also maybe there is an underlying homoerotic tension between them.
I just think Beau. Wait a minute, who are the two? It's Roy and Beau.
Beau is Charlie Sheen, and Roy is Maxwell.
Roy is Maxwell. No, he's the one who throws the beer bottle at the old lady, right?
Roy, yeah.
Roy does that. I never got but now that you, the scene where they attack the homosexual in his own apartment.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of brutal shit that goes on in this film. I mean, and it's pure 1980s stuff. I mean, this movie reeks of 1980. The whole mall stuff and the stuff on the beach. It's amazing how in its time this film. Now, Charlie Sheen was only 18 when he did this, right?
Yeah, and the screenwriters were only 17 when they sold the script.
Yeah, so who are the two screenwriters?
It's Glenn Morgan and James Wong, and they went on to be big producer writers on the X-Files for many years.
Amazing. And they wrote this at 17.
Yeah.
And Caulfield was 5 years older than Sheen at the time. And like I said in the preamble, he just came out of Grease 2, which might explain some of the motivation he had to be an ass in this film.
I think he had some trouble finding work
after Grease 2, yeah.
And so this was about as different as you could get.
Oh my God! And Charlie Sheen's dad, Martin, didn't want him to do the film. It's what I read, on IMDb, of course. But
because it was so violent or something.
Well, I don't know why, but he did Badlands, right? Which is essentially it's the same idea with these teens just having a murder spree just because, like you were saying,
right.
Or we talked about this off camera. The two guys from Colorado, those two kids who Columbine.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because we talked about the potentially homosexual tension, the homoerotic tension between the two. It's not really between the two. The way that I look at it is it's from Roy to Beau, and that they are not an even relationship. And in some ways, like clearly Roy is the dominant personality.
Yeah, Beau was clueless.
But Beau is oblivious. So Beau, in some ways,
Charlie Sheen,
a lot more. Yes, Beau's got a lot more control and power in the relationship than he even realizes, but Roy realizes that, and that makes him angrier. And if you look at Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, who shot up Columbine, it's very clear from what we've learned all these years later that Eric Harris was the one who led Dylan into this. It doesn't mean that Dylan's not responsible, but Eric was the one with the real darkness, and Dylan was susceptible to what attracted him to it. And if Beau went to Los Angeles in this movie, this wasn't going to happen. He maybe got into a fight, maybe threw something at a car. But, when it starts happening, he's kind of like, oh my gosh, he killed somebody. But he's not satisfied at first, at least the way that Roy is. So it's watching these two guys do terrible things at sort of different paces.
Yeah. Well, like we said, it wasn't subtle. There's a scene at the beginning when they decide to go to L.A. and Roy Caulfield says, there's something dark inside me that needs to come out. And I just remember that time when that guy, and you knew that that's where the shit, but all the stereotypes. So the first guy they didn't kill, beat the shit out of, was the Iranian. Yeah. Now this is right during the Iranian, 1984, the Iranian, they in the gas station. Right. And then it's the homosexual that they go after. And then it's the 29-year-old Patty D'Arbanville.
Patty D'Arbanville, yes.
D'Arbanville, who I love. I think she was in Wise Guy. Was she in Wise Guy back in the day? I
think so, yeah.
Oh, great series.
That scene is almost like, let's try to do a little Clockwork Orange vibe.
Yeah, that scene got to me. Because she was an innocent. They're all innocent. Everybody they killed or attacked was innocent. All of them. The old lady on the beach, the gas station attendant, all of these people were innocent people that this guy went and killed. And in the middle of it, Bo is just caught up in it. Bo was having sex with that woman when he decides to kill her, when he shakes her to death. I think he snapped her neck when he shook her. I don't know what the hell happened.
He shook her to death. Well, like when Roy kills that couple in the car, I think they're in the car when he shoots them.
Yeah.
But Bo's reaction is, why'd you kill her too?
Right.
So it's not a, you shouldn't do this, or we did something wrong, but why'd you go so far? Why'd you kill the pretty girl?
Right.
They're having two very different experiences as murderers.
Yeah.
Well, I think like going back to Natural Born Killers, like some of the people that they kill in that movie, you could sympathize with why they chose to kill them. Like particularly like Mallory's family and
Scagnetti or whatever.
Jones and I'm forgetting his name. He was a heroin addict afterward. Well, both of them were. Robert
Downey Jr. Yeah.
Thank you. And
you're welcome.
so like there are, I think that you can have sympathy towards this, where this is like you cannot have sympathy for the people that they picked to murder. This movie actually reminds me more of like Henry Portrait of the Serial Killer than anything else.
I'd see that.
And in particular, the scene where they shoot the gay guy in his apartment, it kind of reminded me of the home invasion scene when they're attacking that family. It's nowhere near
Henry Portrait. Yeah, that can't.
Yeah,
that's
it's nowhere near as hardcore as that scene, but it reminded me.
I can't watch that film again because of that scene. That scene.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a legit observation. I mean, all these movies are on a continuum, and sometimes they go to a place that's almost silly, like a Hostel or something is just torture porn ridiculousness. But Henry and this, as far as the violence, it feels very real in a lot of ways. Just Henry is
random,
more. Random, right? Well, that and see, to me, that's like the 80s, really 80s thing about this. It could happen anywhere. The children are dangerous. They're growing up into monsters. I mean, I'll bet part of why the movie sold at all was because 17-year-old kids were writing it like it really is from the streets where teenagers are and all that kind of stuff. And that feels very dated now. I mean, now everybody thinks if you let your child outside, a predator's going to get your child. But back then, these angry, lost teenagers, they were the problem. There's nothing in this movie that you couldn't tell this kind of story today. But I mean, we haven't even talked about the cops chasing them, Christopher McDonald and the other detective, and that part of the movie I wasn't even sure what the tone was really.
Well, this is what I mean by the tone, but the pure 80s, like it was so clunky.
That's it.
So clunky.
That's what it is.
And the lead, now you had Christopher McDonald, who also was in Grease 2 with Caulfield, right? As a lead detective with the skinny tie, the 80s skinny tie. But his partner, I think, was in the movie The Hidden. I can't quite figure out. They were so clunky and so wooden, especially the big guy, the big fat cop that was dropping all the gay slurs and all the racial slurs. I mean, this movie hit you like a sledgehammer with all the... But I don't think it was a sledgehammer in 84. I think this is how people talked.
Well, yeah, at a certain point, an 80s movie was just a movie.
I understand, but still...
You're right.
Clunky and not subtle at all. Nothing subtle. But it affected me in a way that I didn't expect. Because... And when I find out that she's the woman who directed Wayne's World...
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
What the... How does... Who looked at her thing and so that's the one we should do for Wayne's World?
Well,
I don't know what else...
If they had dispensed with the cop storyline, like this movie would have been a lot more darker, I think. and it would be more in tone with Henry.
You know what?
The police aren't really involved in Henry.
Yeah.
It's really just Henry and
Isn't it
friend.
funny you keep mentioning Henry, and the last person they showed in that montage at the beginning was Henry Lucas.
Yeah. And this came out, I think, a year before Henry.
I think it did. I think yeah. The cops were like Keystone Cops, but I don't know. And all the homoerotic, Caulfield with his shirt off. I mean, he looked buff as shit. I mean, he would have been Captain America, whatever, Thor, right? If it was happening now. I don't know what happened to that guy.
He's old.
He's old now, but he wasn't old then. He was
not
25.
Not everybody's Robert Downey Jr. and basically doesn't age.
Yeah, I don't know how he does that, but and Charlie Sheen, you look at this and you go, wow, holy crap. The kid had talent. The kid had talent. Yeah. He still does. I'm not saying he went a little off the rails, no question. But, this is before Wall Street. This is before, I think even before Ferris Bueller, right? When he did that little simple scene in Ferris Bueller. When was Ferris Bueller out? Anybody?
That was after this, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, so that's not a cult film, but he was in, he was great in this film, actually, I thought.
Well, I remember the first thing that I saw him in ever that I noticed was I was noticing actors. I guess I was 11 when it came out, was Red Dawn.
Oh, yeah.
And he was the little brother, the earnest, I'll follow you anywhere, big brother. In that case, Patrick Swayze. Like it was a familiar role. I mean, that was done, in the same few years. His career was really breaking, and he was in a lot of different movies and stuff. But he's a kind of all-American young kid, and I see him as he's not the leader, because the leader is just much more charismatic older brother, or the leader is like Roy's insane.
Yeah,
he's really insane, but he's obviously very. He includes Bo, who, as we learned, also doesn't have a lot going on in his life. And that's the thing about the movie. That's the source of my somewhat sympathy for them. There's real violence in this movie. It's not played for cartoonish anything at all, but it has causes and it has consequences, and that makes it feel real. And the consequences, unlike Henry the Portrait of the Serial Killer, where the consequences are for the victims, in this movie the consequences are for the victims and for them. I mean, you don't go on a spree killing and keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it because you really care about getting caught or not. The serial killers that were in the slideshow, a lot of those people killed for many, many years, and they didn't want to get caught.
Well, again, these are two kids who...
Right, they're acting out. Acting out with murder.
And they realized it was... Now, okay, the clunkiness, okay? Let's break the movie down now, okay?
Sure.
It starts with the chalk outline of Charlie Sheen playing the prank. How did it end?
With the chalk outline of
his buddy who he shot.
Yeah, it's not subtle.
It's not subtle at all. It's like just bang me over the forehead with a sledgehammer. But still effective. I'm not denying I was still affected by the fact that this was pure 80s cinema, clunky as hell. Even the whole gay bar scene was every cliche you ever thought about a gay bar scene, except for if you watch Cruising, that one.
Yeah, that's a little different.
That was 82. I think that came out in 82, right?
Well, you bring up Cruising because, like, when I saw that movie, to me, Al Pacino he's repressing his homosexuality in that movie, and it kind of reminded me of this a little bit because there's a scene in that movie where he's like basically hate fucking Karen Allen.
That's the last scene in the film. It's the last scene in the film.
Yeah, and that's just what it reminds me of. I mean, that's what I got out of that movie is like Al Pacino's, other than the serial killer, is Al Pacino, he's repressed.
Well, what I got out of this film is incel.
I think, yeah.
I got these guys just, they're charismatic. You're right. These are two handsome dudes, right? Charlie Sheen's a good-looking guy. Caulfield looked great. Yet they're walking around like they can't get a date. Now, yes, is it a problem with the uppity crust people who just don't want to deal with these guys? Yes, but it puts in their head, it's like this incel thing where like these people feel they deserve, they're entitled
they're owed
to
something. That's right. They're owed something.
They're owed.
They're just not actually owed
And this
anything.
is 1984, and this is already in there. It's, I hate to use the word, I keep using it, but it's prescient. It's like crazy. And I'm kind of half laughing at the film because it's clunky and half going, holy shit. 1984, how'd they, they knew something. But then you have Chris McDonald with the skinny tie and the stupid over-the-top cop who's making fun of everybody.
Has probably always been around. It's just now that there's the internet, there's areas for them to congregate. And
yeah, they did that on the U.S. Capitol. That's where all the incels went to the U.S. Capitol. But
yeah,
we'll talk about that.
Look, I mean, people can get together on the internet and talk about cult movies with people they've never met, or they can get together on the internet and talk about how they'd kill their girlfriend and stuff. Right. I mean, there's all kinds of forums for people. And these kids, I mean, these kids in this movie, because they are kids. Yes, the actors are adults, but they're high school graduate that day kids.
Right.
I mean, they are truly monstrous in a way that feels real because the violence is so real, I think.
Well, and it's got an X rating, right? They cut a lot out of this film.
I know they had to do a number of edits to get to an R.
You can see they jumped around a little bit because they had. Now, explain to me again why you consider this a cult film. Is it because nobody saw it, or is it?
It's definitely not as well known. It's one of those movies.
I never knew about it.
It's from an era that there's a lot of familiar titles, and there are even familiar faces in the movie. Like it's Charlie Sheen. It doesn't get much more 80s than that. And Penelope Spheris. You're like, oh, I know Wayne's World. You might know her documentaries. But this is neither of those things, and also it's an exceptionally violent movie. The last time that we met together, we talked about Crash, which got an NC-17 and is arguably more graphic. I think this movie's violence is more disturbing.
It's much more disturbing, and it's because again we get back to Lucas. It's random. It's random. Like he whips the bottle, hits the lady in the head, or that poor woman. Patty D'Amberville, who meets him in a bar, 29 years old, having a great time, and all of a sudden this guy decides to choke her out and shake her to death. And Charlie Sheen's like, what the but, it's his buddy, so he's going to, until the end when he decides. That line about it's only 2 seconds of pain, he only had I thought that was, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but that was kind of prophetic. It was weird, right? And those 17-year-old kids wrote that.
Was it like Of Mice and Men, where he was going to have to put down his friend or something? I mean,
I don't know, but the idea that Charlie Sheen said to him repeated what Caulfield said when he shot the girl that was trying to play video games with him. Mm-hmm. That Charlie Sheen called that back. And I'd like to see what happened to that character once he went to. I'm sure he's all tatted up, and who knows what happened, but because he went away forever for that stuff that went down.
What? Yeah, I would imagine he'd have done some serious time for that. Yeah, hopefully.
I didn't enjoy the film. I found the film fascinating, and when I found out that she directed Wayne's World, it just like I said, when I'm watching the trailer, all I want to do is put that trailer audio against the picture of Wayne's World trailer, and I think it would be perfect. It's crazy.
Look, I think it's great when artists have range, and Wayne's World is what it is and is a good example of it, and I think this is what it is and is a good example of it. I mean, I think it gets pushed into the cult territory because that's what you were asking by virtue of its tone and its violence, but a lot of it is because we've talked before. Galaxy Quest is quote unquote a cult hit,
right? Because
nobody saw it when it came out. This one people still haven't seen. Even though it's it's got big Hollywood people in it and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's I mean I had only my wife turned me on to it. She had seen it when she was growing up, but we watched it. I just saw it for the first time, well now technically last year, and I was like, wow, I don't know anything about this. This is really intense. I did not expect that. So
not to be confused with the other boy next door with Jennifer Lopez and. Who was that guy?
And there's The Boys Next Door, which is a TV movie about 5 special needs people having an adventure with a lot of big actors. I wanted to make sure you guys didn't watch the wrong one. They're very different movies.
But there are 2 things that surprised me about this movie.
Yeah.
The first one is they subverted my expectation about what they were going to do with the dog they kidnapped. Because I totally thought Roy was going to kill the dog.
Right. Right.
But it just ended up, and it was actually a happy part of the story where, yes, the dog got left behind on Venice Beach or wherever they were, but after Maxwell Caulfield had the run-in with the three ladies who were angry at him for abusing the elderly lady, the one lady picked up the dog and looked at its tag. So you know the dog was probably going to make it home.
Yeah, I did like that part. Yeah, it was a relief.
And the other thing that surprised me was they did not have a sexual assault in this film. Almost all the sex was consensual. So
wait a minute. How do you say that when he got behind the homosexual guy and tried to choke him out?
That's not sexual assault. I'm talking about like
he wasn't raping anyone.
Okay.
Yeah, there was no rape in the film. Right. Which
Drew, put your hand up on you're out of focus. Put your hand up. Hand up. There you go. Now you're back. Thank you.
With a film like this, you could expect some form of sexual assault to occur.
So when Charlie Sheen is having sex with that woman, and Caulfield comes behind her and chokes her while Charlie Sheen, that's not a sexual assault. That's a
because she
was having consensual sex with Charlie Sheen, and then his friend murdered her.
Okay.
Because of his jealousy.
Okay.
Presumably about what was going on between Charlie Sheen and.
I guess if you're saying that, yeah, okay.
Well, I don't think Bo was saying I'm going to have sexual intercourse with this woman and then my friend will kill her. I think he was surprised as well.
Oh, he was not happy.
They met a lady. She was nice. She took them home. Yeah. She said, "Let's have sex." They had sex.
Remember that kid was he's 18 years old in this, 17 maybe, and she's 29.
Yeah,
he was fine. His friend screwed that up. And I think that's why Charlie Sheen shot him at the end, actually, because he shot I think you're right about Caulfield, because Caulfield killed every woman that Charlie Sheen was attracted to.
Yeah, I think it was jealousy.
I never even caught. I didn't. Oh my god! I just thought he was. Yeah. Go ahead, Al. I'm sorry.
Well, like the scene that I was expecting the sexual assault to happen was when the boyfriend and girlfriend were in the car and Roy shoots the boyfriend. I thought things were going to go sideways, where he was going to get her to get out of the car with the gun and they were going to, I guess, rape her. But he just ends up killing her.
Yep.
But
which was frustrating to Bo, because Bo is so stupid. I don't think Bo was upset that Roy killed her, and then Bo was like, "Why'd you have to kill the girl?" kind of thing. Not because I was going to rape her, but because, well, her boyfriend's gone, like we could all hang out. Like, Bo's just stupid.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't looking, he was definitely not leading the train on let's hurt people. He just always jumped in. That's why he put his friend down like an animal, basically.
Right. In terms of stupidity, like there is a scene where Roy is trying to read a ticket or like a note on his car, and he's basically illiterate.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So like that, you do see, you know, their level of education. I'm not really sure how they graduated high school, but they did.
Look, I mean, there's all kinds of social commentary you could get out of the movie. You know, the high schools graduate people, you know, with social promotion. They just push you through, and it doesn't really matter that you can qualify or not, because you're old enough. Just get out of there. I mean, you know, poverty creates monsters, and there's different levels of poverty. So this movie is showing a kind of upbringing where there's nothing behind them, around them, or ahead of them. It's not, you know, it's not as extreme as some other situations, but their lives are boring and bleak. And one guy decided, I'm going to act out with the violence that I've clearly felt my whole life. And his friend was like, well, I'll go too. And that's really sad.
Yeah, but again, it's clunky, right? Okay, yes, and when Caulfield has that thing with his dad, where the dad's drinking beer, watching TV, and Caulfield does the whole "Hi, Dad" and does all the language. I mean, all right, but it's still effective. I was still affected by the film, and I'm glad you brought it, because I would never have saw this film, never, you know. And Charlie Sheen, I kind of think, you know, kind of underrated. And because of what happened later in his life, he kind of went off the rails. But, you know, this guy's underrated as an actor. He was very good in this film. And frankly, so was Caulfield. Caulfield was good.
They were both really good. They were scary.
Yeah, good. And if you're gonna, yes, it's clunky. There's some edits in there. There's some weird stuff that was going on that you just like. But the two actors did what they had to do. And whatever the motivation, whether Caulfield was pissed because of Grease 2, whatever, he pulled it off, I thought. So, you know.
We were talking before that apparently Penelope Spheris had actually auditioned Crispin Glover for considering him for both of the roles, and she didn't hire him because she thought his take was, quote, too psychotic, end quote. I mean,
can you imagine that guy and Caulfield? Can you imagine? Charlie Sheen kind of gives you. Charlie Sheen's it seems like a normal teenager. Can you imagine Crispin Glover and Caulfield driving down the street? There'd be no question what was going on.
Yeah.
Oh,
if they're both crazy, then it's relatable.
I enjoyed that one. So
I do want to give.
And by the way, but one more thing. I'm sorry, Al. I always interrupt Al. He hates when I do that, but I'm going to do it. The scenes in the mall remind me that, oh my God, the 80s were all about malls. I mean, that's what Dawn of the Dead's all about, all that stuff. But Jesus, that whole mall, they're running through all the stores and the sweet candy, I don't know, all that stuff. Anyway, go ahead.
It reminded you of your favorite movie of 2020, Wonder Woman 1984.
Oh, it's a big mall scene in that. That's right. Right here in Landmark in Virginia. Go ahead, Al. I'm sorry.
Right.
I just wanted to give one special shout out to an actor in that film, in the Boys Next Door. His name is Vance Colvig Jr., and he played the bum in UHF who saves the day, saves the TV station at the very end of UHF. But he's in The Boys Next Door as the old man at the gas station who blames the minorities for beating up the Iranians.
Oh, that guy.
That's funny.
Who was the guy that slammed on their car stinging the Star Spangled Banner? Is that Mr. Blue? Is that Mr. Blue from Old School? Is that Blue who dies?
I don't think that's him, but that guy's in a bunch of other stuff, and I couldn't remember what exactly.
Doing the Star Spangled Banner? It's a riot. Jesus. And the car was painted with the primer. That was it's just all kinds of good 80s shit going on in that thing.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Good job. That was a good one.
I'm glad you are. If you're glad that you saw it,
I did. I enjoyed that one. I enjoyed it.
It was awful. It was not funny. It was wonderful. Whatever. But if you're glad you saw it, that's a good way to encounter a movie.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little. I'm still waiting for the naked ladies and the boobies and the. I'm waiting. That wouldn't be girls.
Listen, dude.
What's going on?
You pick them.
I know. All right. Well, throw a couple of those in there, guys. Okay. These just seem so normal. All right. Good one. Good job. You guys have a great week.
Thank you, too.